No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to hand you confidence. No one is coming to give you permission to become the person you know you are capable of becoming. You can spend years waiting for approval, for recognition, for someone to finally look at you and say that you are good enough. But the longer you wait, the more power you surrender to the outside world. The truth is, most people are not watching you as closely as you imagine. They are too busy fighting their own fears, carrying their own regrets, and trying to make sense of their own lives. So stop living as if your life were a performance before an endless audience. There is no audience. There is only you, the road in front of you, and the choices only you can make. The day you stop waiting for the world to give you permission is the day you begin taking your life back. No one is coming to save you. And perhaps the first thing you must be saved from is the illusion that everyone is watching you. Imagine a man standing alone in the center of a vast public square, adjusting his clothes, correcting his posture, measuring every movement, afraid that one wrong gesture will expose him to ridicule. He believes 1,000 eyes are fixed upon him. He feels their judgment before a single word is spoken. He hears criticism in silence, rejection in a passing glance, disappointment in faces that have not even noticed him. Yet, when he finally looks beyond the light surrounding him, he discovers something unsettling. The square is nearly empty. The audience he feared was largely created by his own mind. This is how many people move through life. They live beneath an invisible spotlight, constantly wondering how they appear, how they sound, whether they are respected, whether they seem successful, whether someone might disapprove. This imagined attention becomes a fog around the mind. It distorts simple decisions. It turns ordinary mistakes into personal disasters. It makes a person hesitate before speaking honestly, changing direction, beginning again, wearing what feels natural, leaving what has become empty, or choosing a life that others may not understand. The tragedy is not that people judge us. Sometimes they do. The tragedy is that we often judge ourselves on their behalf before they ever get the chance. We become both prisoner and guard. We construct the cell, lock the door, then complain that the world has taken away our freedom. Look carefully at the people around you. The man who seemed distracted during your conversation may be thinking about a medical bill. The woman who did not return your smile may be worried about her marriage. The friend who appeared unimpressed by your progress may be wrestling with a private failure. The stranger who looked at you for 3 seconds may have forgotten you 3 seconds later. Human beings are occupied with their own fears, responsibilities, losses, hopes, and private battles. Most are not studying your life with the attention you imagine. They are standing beneath their own invisible spotlight, worried about the same judgment that troubles you. When this becomes clear, something inside begins to loosen. You realize that much of the pressure you have carried was not placed on your shoulders by the world. You placed it there yourself. You rehearsed conversations that never happened. You defended choices no one had attacked. You hid parts of yourself from people who were barely looking. You postponed decisions because you feared an audience that was busy thinking about itself. This realization is not an invitation to become careless, cruel, or indifferent. Freedom from imagined judgment is not freedom from responsibility. A disciplined person still listens to wise counsel, still considers consequences, still respects other people, still corrects mistakes. But there is a great difference between receiving useful guidance and surrendering your identity to every passing opinion. One strengthens you, The other fragments a calm mind learns to distinguish between them. Ask yourself how many decisions in your life were shaped not by what you knew to be right, but by what you feared others might think. Perhaps you remained in work that drained you because leaving might look irresponsible. Perhaps you kept relationships alive long after trust had disappeared because separation might look like failure. Perhaps you concealed a dream because someone could laugh. Perhaps you refused to begin again because you believed your age may change. Embarrassing. Years can disappear this way, not through catastrophe, but through thousands of small acts of self-abandonment. A person can spend decades arranging a life for spectators who never bought a ticket. Then one morning, time has moved forward. The body has changed. People have come and gone. And the applause that seemed so important has left no substance behind. This is why clarity matters. You have a limited amount of life. Your attention is limited. Your strength is limited. Your days are not an endless resource. Every hour spent managing an imaginary reputation is an hour that cannot be invested in character, health, meaningful work, honest relationships, or inner peace. The fog begins to lift when you stop asking how you are being seen and begin asking how you are actually living. These are very different questions. Appearance asks whether people approve. Character asks whether your actions agree with your values. Appearance changes with the room. Character remains when the room is empty. Appearance needs witnesses. Character is formed in solitude. The false light of attention can make even an empty life look important for a moment. But when that light disappears, only substance remains. This is why silence can feel uncomfortable at first. Without feedback, praise, comparison, and reaction, you are forced to meet yourself directly. There is no crowd to impress, no stranger to blame, no applause to hide behind. There is only the quiet question of whether you respect the person you are becoming. That question is harder than asking whether others respect you, because it cannot be answered with appearances. It must be answered by how you live when nobody is watching. Once you understand that the world is not observing you as closely as you imagined, you gain a rare opportunity. You can step out of the false spotlight. You can stop performing every decision. You can make mistakes without turning them into a public trial. You can change your mind without treating change as humiliation. You can begin late. You can walk away. You can speak less. You can become different. But there is another layer beneath this fog, and it is more difficult to confront even after you realize that most people are not watching. Part of you may still desperately want them to watch. Part of you still wants the nod, the praise, the approval, the sign that you matter. That hunger is where the next chain begins. That hunger is where the next chain begins. You may understand that the world is not watching you as closely as you once believed, yet still feel a quiet ache when nobody notices your effort. You may know that approval should not define you, yet still feel smaller when praise does not come. This is because the desire to belong is older than your ambition, older than your career, older than the image you have spent years building. Long before human beings had screens, followers, titles, and public reputations, acceptance meant safety. To be rejected by the group could mean hunger, danger, or death. The body remembers what the modern mind often forgets. It still reacts to exclusion as if something essential has been threatened. This is why a cold response can disturb you for hours. This is why one careless criticism can remain in the mind longer than 10 sincere compliments. This is why some people will betray their own judgment simply to avoid standing alone. The instinct is ancient, but the environment has changed. Today, the tribe may be a workplace, a family, a social circle, a church, a neighborhood, or a collection of strangers behind glowing screens. The danger is no longer physical exile, yet the nervous system can still behave as if approval were necessary for survival. Wisdom begins when you can feel that instinct without automatically obeying it. There is nothing weak about wanting connection. Human beings need one another. Love, friendship, respect, and community can give life depth. The problem begins when connection becomes dependence, when you no longer ask whether something is right, but whether it will be applauded. Then approval stops being a gift and becomes a drug. You begin adjusting yourself in small ways. You soften an opinion that matters to you. You laugh when nothing is funny. You stay silent when something should be said. You accept disrespect because confrontation might cost affection. You keep saying yes because no might disappoint someone. At first, these compromises seem harmless. They may even appear polite, but repeated often enough, they teach the mind a dangerous lesson, that peace with others is more important than peace with yourself. Then the chain tightens. You begin borrowing your value from reactions. A compliment lifts you, criticism lowers you, attention excites you, silence makes you doubt yourself. Your inner state becomes a room whose light switch is mounted on the outside wall. Anyone can reach it. A manager can change your mood with one sentence. An adult child can make you question your worth with one disappointed expression. A stranger online can disturb an evening that was peaceful moments before. This is not because those people possess unusual power. It is because somewhere along the way, you handed them the key. Many people spend half a lifetime becoming successful in the eyes of others while becoming unfamiliar to themselves. They choose the respectable path, maintain the proper image, collect the expected symbols, and become skilled at appearing content. Yet late at night, when the house is quiet and there is nobody left to impress, a strange emptiness appears. It does not always arrive as sadness. Sometimes it arrives as irritation, sometimes exhaustion, sometimes a restlessness that makes silence unbearable. Sometimes it appears as the question that has been avoided for 20 years. Whose life have I actually been living? By the time a person reaches middle age or beyond, the cost of that question can feel heavy. There may be responsibilities that cannot simply be abandoned, relationships that deserve care, promises that still matter. Freedom does not require destroying everything you have built. It requires becoming honest about why you continue to build it. There is a difference between sacrifice chosen from love and sacrifice demanded by fear. There is a difference between serving your family and disappearing inside their expectations. There is a difference between respecting tradition and becoming trapped by it. The mature path is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It is the ability to remain connected without becoming owned. This requires discipline because approval gives immediate rewards. A kind word feels good. Recognition feels good. Being included feels good. The mind learns quickly what behavior produces these rewards. And soon you may start performing for them without noticing. You show the version of yourself that receives the safest response. You hide the parts that might create tension. Over time, the mask becomes efficient. It knows when to smile, when to agree, when to remain quiet, when to appear strong, when to pretend that everything is fine. The danger is that a mask worn for too many years can begin to feel like a face. Then you are no longer merely pleasing others. You are forgetting what you actually think, want, and value. To break this chain, do not begin by declaring that you no longer care what anyone thinks. That is often another performance. Begin more quietly. Notice where your behavior changes in the presence of certain people. Notice which truths become difficult to speak. Notice which decisions require imaginary permission. Notice the moments when you reach for your phone, not because you need information, but because you need proof that you still matter. Awareness weakens the chain because what can be seen clearly can no longer control you from the shadows. Then practice small acts of inner independence. Allow someone to misunderstand you without rushing to correct the image. Let a respectful no remain a no. Make one decision because it is aligned with your values, even if nobody celebrates it. Sit with the discomfort that follows. That discomfort is not always a warning. Sometimes it is simply the feeling of an old dependency losing its grip. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is to stop placing your worth in hands that were never meant to carry it. Approval can be welcomed, but it cannot be your foundation. Praise can be enjoyed, but it cannot become your food, because once your life depends on being accepted, you will eventually begin paying for acceptance with pieces of yourself. And every piece surrendered creates a small opening through which your strength begins to leak. Every piece surrendered creates a small opening through which your strength begins to leak. At first, the loss is almost invisible. You still wake up, go to work, answer the phone, care for your family, complete your duties, and move through the day as if nothing important has changed. Yet inside, something feels thinner. Imagine a clay vessel with a hairline crack along its side. You can pour clean water into it every morning, but by evening, the level has fallen again. You may blame the heat, the distance, the weight of the journey, but the real problem is the crack. This is what happens when you repeatedly silence yourself to preserve approval. Energy is not lost only through hard work. It is also lost through pretending. It is lost when your face says yes while your mind says no. It is lost when you remain in conversations that violate your values. When you explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. When you rehearse the same argument after everyone has gone home. When you carry resentment because you were too afraid to speak with honesty. These moments seem small, but life is built from small moments. A single drop does not empty a vessel, but 1,000 unnoticed drops can leave it dry. Many people call this exhaustion and assume they need more rest. Sometimes rest is necessary. Sometimes the deeper problem is that too much life is being spent maintaining a version of yourself that other people find comfortable. The body can sleep 8 hours and still wake tired when the mind has been performing for years. There is a particular fatigue that comes from constantly monitoring yourself. Was there too much? Did I say the wrong thing? Should I have agreed? Are they upset with me? Do they still respect me? This internal surveillance consumes attention that could have been used for thought, creativity, courage, health, and presence. You become divided into two people. The one who is living and the one who is watching, the one who is living. The watcher corrects every gesture. It edits every sentence. It calculates every reaction. Eventually, spontaneity disappears. You are no longer meeting life directly. You are managing an image of yourself inside the minds of other people. That is a task with no finish line, because every person sees you differently. and every opinion can change tomorrow. Trying to control all of them is like trying to hold water with an open hand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. This is why self-silencing becomes so costly each time you hide a necessary truth. You teach yourself that your inner voice is less important than external comfort. Each time you ignore a boundary, you teach others that your limits are negotiable. Each time you betray your own judgment to avoid disappointment, you weaken the relationship you have with yourself. Trust in yourself is not created by repeating positive words in a mirror. It is built when your actions prove that your own values can rely on you. If you say that peace matters, yet repeatedly enter unnecessary conflict for approval, you weaken that trust. If you say that health matters, yet sacrifice your body to satisfy every demand, you weaken it. If you say that dignity matters, yet remain available to people who continually diminish you, you weaken it. Over years, this creates a quiet form of inner poverty. You may have possessions, achievements, responsibilities, and people around you, yet feel that something essential is missing. What is missing may be the energy that was spent abandoning yourself in small installments. This does not mean every compromise is betrayal. Mature life requires compromise. Families require patience. Work requires cooperation. Love requires sacrifice. The question is not whether you give. The question is whether your giving comes from strength or fear. Giving from strength leaves dignity intact. Giving from fear slowly erases the giver. One is generosity. The other is self-abandonment disguised as kindness. You can often tell the difference by what remains afterward. Healthy sacrifice may leave you tired, but it does not leave you ashamed of yourself. Fearful compliance leaves a residue. You feel resentment, heaviness, irritation, or strange need to escape. These feelings are not always evidence that someone else is wrong. They are signals asking you to examine where your life is leaking. Do not rush to blame the people around you. A cracked vessel is repaired from the inside as well as the outside. Some people may have benefited from your silence, but you must still take responsibility for continuing it. This is where strength begins to return, not through dramatic confrontation, but through careful honesty. Speak one sentence you normally swallow. Decline one obligation that exists only because you fear disapproval. Stop explaining one decision that requires no defense. Leave one argument unfinished when continuing it serves only pride. Protect 1 hour of your day from demands that have no rightful claim upon it. Small acts of integrity seal small cracks. At first they may feel selfish, because you have confused constant availability with goodness. But boundaries do not make the heart smaller. They prevent your energy from being scattered so widely that nothing meaningful receives your full presence. A person who gives everything to everyone eventually has nothing real to give. The goal is not to become guarded against life. The goal is to become whole enough that your giving has substance. As the leaks close, you may notice something unfamiliar. More silence, fewer explanations, fewer unnecessary conversations, fewer attempts to manage what everyone thinks. At first, that silence can feel empty, because noise once distracted you from yourself. But if you remain there long enough, the emptiness begins to change. What seemed like absence becomes space. What seemed like loneliness becomes clarity. When the constant performance grows quiet, you finally begin to hear what has been waiting underneath it. And that is where silence begins to teach. When the constant performance grows quiet, you finally begin to hear what has been waiting underneath it. And that is where silence begins to teach. At first, silence rarely feels peaceful. For someone who has spent years surrounded by opinions, demandes, conversations, notifications, obligations, and the constant need to respond, silence can feel almost threatening. The mind has become accustomed to movement. It expects another voice, another reaction, another sign that you are still connected to the world. When those signals disappear, even for a short time, something uncomfortable rises to the surface. You may call it loneliness. You may call it boredom. You may reach for the television, the phone, another conversation, anything that prevents you from sitting with what is there. Yet if you remain still, without immediately escaping, silence begins to reveal what noise was hiding. It shows you which relationships were built on genuine care and which survived only because you were constantly feeding them with attention. It shows you which people value your presence and which people value only what you provide. It shows you which ambitions came from your own convictions and which were inherited from a world that taught you what success was supposed to look like. Silence does not create these truths. It simply removes enough distraction for you to see them. Imagine a room after a celebration has ended. Hours earlier, it was filled with music, laughter, movement, and conversation. Every chair was occupied. Every corner seemed alive. Then the music stops. The guests leave. The lights are lowered. The room has not changed. But now you can see what remains after the excitement is gone. Life works in much the same way. Attention can make almost anything appear meaningful for a while. Praise can make a shallow relationship feel important. Popularity can make an empty achievement feel valuable. Constant communication can create the appearance of closeness. But when the noise fades, substance is tested. Attention is easy to give when everything is entertaining, useful, convenient, or impressive. Love is different. Love remains when there is nothing to gain. Respect remains when you stop performing. Loyalty remains when you become inconvenient. This is why periods of silence can change the way you see people. Stop always being the one who calls and notice who reaches for you. Stop solving every problem and notice who still wants your company when you have nothing to offer. Stop explaining every difficult season of your life and notice who can sit beside you without demanding that you become cheerful for their comfort. These observations may hurt, but pain is not always an enemy. Sometimes pain is the price of seeing clearly. A person who fears truth will keep the music playing forever. A person who wants freedom eventually allows the room to become quiet. This does not mean turning relationships into secret tests. It does not mean withdrawing affection just to see who chases you. That is another form of manipulation. The lesson is simpler. Stop carrying every connection alone. Stop forcing what requires constant effort to appear alive. Give people enough space to reveal their natural position in your life. Some will move closer. Some will remain steady. Some will slowly disappear. Let the disappearance teach you without making you bitter. Not every person who leaves is cruel. Some relationships belong to a particular season. Some were built around a version of you that no longer exists. Some depended upon habits you are beginning to outgrow. Maturity means allowing endings without turning every ending into an accusation. You do not need to hate someone in order to release them. You do not need a villain in every story. Sometimes two people simply stop walking in the same direction. Silence also reveals another truth, one that can be more difficult than discovering who truly cares for you. It reveals whether you know how to be with yourself. Many people can spend an entire day caring for others and still become uncomfortable after 20 minutes alone. They have learned every responsibility except the responsibility of knowing their own mind. They know what their employer expects, what their spouse prefers, what their children need, what their friends want. Yet they struggle to answer a quieter question. What is happening inside me? Years of outward attention can make the inner world unfamiliar. This is why solitude is not merely the absence of company. Used wisely, it becomes training. It teaches you to observe a thought without immediately believing it. It teaches you to feel sadness without making sadness your identity. It teaches you to experience discomfort without searching for instant relief. It teaches you that an emotion can arrive, remain for a time, and leave without receiving control over your actions. The mind that learns this becomes harder to manipulate. Praise no longer intoxicates it so easily. Criticism no longer destroys it so quickly. Silence becomes a mirror, and the mirror does not flatter you, but it also does not condemn you. It simply reflects what is present. If there is resentment, you see resentment. If there is fear, you see fear. If there is peace, you see peace. From that clear seeing, correction becomes possible. You begin to understand that many of the answers you demanded from other people were answers you needed to give yourself. You wanted someone to confirm that you had done enough. You wanted someone to explain why they hurt you. You wanted someone to return and close a chapter that remained open in your mind. Sometimes those answers come, often they do not. If your peace depends upon another person providing the perfect explanation, apology, recognition, or farewell, then your peace remains under their control. Silence eventually asks you to stop waiting at that door. It asks you to accept that some questions will remain unanswered. Some people will never understand what they did. Some will never recognize what you gave. Some will remember the same past differently. You can spend the rest of your life demanding that reality become fair before you allow yourself to move forward. Or you can accept what cannot be changed and recover the energy that waiting has consumed. This is where silence stops being empty and becomes powerful. It returns you to the one place where your authority is real, your own choices. And once you see that clearly, another truth rises before you, perhaps the hardest truth of all. There are rivers in life that no friend, no teacher, no family member, and no applause can cross for you. At some point, you must stop waiting for the bridge and become willing to enter the water yourself. There comes a moment when standing on the riverbank becomes more painful than entering the water. You can wait for advice, encouragement, permission, certainty, or rescue. But the river does not become shallow because you are afraid to cross it. This is one of the hardest lessons of adulthood. No one can live the decisive parts of your life for you. People can love you, guide you, support you, and walk beside you. But there are choices that remain yours alone. No one can build your discipline for you. No one can repair your neglected health for you. No one can speak the truth you keep swallowing. No one can release the resentment you continue carrying. No one can make peace with the years that have already passed. At some point, waiting stops being patience and becomes avoidance. You may tell yourself that you need the right moment, the right person, the right explanation, the right feeling. Yet often, what you are truly waiting for is permission to act without fear. That permission may never arrive. Time continues whether you move or remain still. This is why responsibility can feel severe at first. It removes the comforting belief that someone else will eventually step in and arrange what you have been unwilling to face. But responsibility is not punishment. It is the return of power. If your life is always someone else's fault, then your future must also remain in someone else's hands. The moment you accept your part, even when you did not create every circumstance, you recover the ability to respond. You may not have chosen the loss. You may not have chosen the betrayal. You may not have chosen the illness, the disappointment, the family you were born into, or the opportunities that never appeared. But what you do with what remains is still yours. This is radical responsibility. It does not deny pain. It refuses to make pain the final authority. Imagine a traveler standing before a deep river, watching the opposite shore. For years he has been told that a bridge will come. He waits through one season, then another. He asks travelers what they think. He becomes an expert on crossing without ever getting wet. Eventually, he must face the truth. There may be no bridge. The only path forward may require discomfort, uncertainty, and effort. Many lives are delayed this way. People wait for motivation before beginning. They wait for confidence before speaking. They wait for closure before moving on. They wait for another person to apologize before allowing themselves peace. They wait to feel ready before changing what they already know must change. But motivation often follows action. Confidence often follows repeated exposure to difficulty. Closure is sometimes something you create by deciding that a chapter no longer deserves your energy. Readiness is not always a feeling. Sometimes readiness is simply the decision to move while fear is still present. This is where self-mastery becomes practical. You stop asking whether you feel like doing what must be done. You begin asking what the next responsible action is. Then you do it. You do it because your life becomes more trustworthy when your actions stop depending on temporary emotion. If your body needs movement, you move it. If a conversation needs honesty, you prepare yourself and speak. If your finances require discipline, you stop hiding from the numbers. If a relationship requires a boundary, you establish one without turning cruelty into strength. If a dream still matters, you give it a place in your schedule instead of merely giving it a place in your imagination. The mind often searches for large transformations because small responsibilities seem ordinary. Yet a life changes through ordinary acts repeated without negotiation. One early morning does not transform you. One difficult conversation does not free you. One disciplined choice does not create character. But each one becomes evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. Evidence that discomfort does not control you. Evidence that you are no longer standing beside the river, waiting for someone to carry you. This creates a deeper confidence than praise ever can. Praise tells you that someone approves of what you did. Self-trust tells you that you will do what is necessary, even when nobody approves. That strength is quieter, less visible, and far more durable. There is also a painful freedom in understanding that no one is coming to save you. At first, the sentence sounds lonely. Then, if you listen carefully, it becomes liberating. If no one is coming to grant permission, then you can stop waiting for permission. If no one can choose your path, then you no longer need universal agreement before walking it. If no one can hand you inner peace, then you can stop begging the world to become peaceful before you begin cultivating it. Become your own torch, not because you know everything, but because you are willing to illuminate the next step. A torch does not reveal the entire road. It reveals enough road to continue. You do not need certainty about the next 10 years. You need honesty about today. You need one action that brings your life closer to what you already know. Then another. Responsibility becomes a practice of returning to what is within reach. Your attention, your habits, your words, your boundaries, your effort, your response. The more energy you reclaim from what you cannot control, the more strength becomes available for what you can. Eventually, you discover something the waiting mind could never understand. Rescue was never the real destination. The real destination was becoming someone who no longer needed to be rescued from himself. But that person is not built in public. That person is formed quietly, through repetition, restraint, and work that receives no applause. The next stage begins where appearances end, in the hidden place where character is cultivated before the world can see its results. The person who no longer waits to be rescued must now learn how to build without being seen. This is where the real work begins. Not beneath bright lights, not in front of an audience, but in the quiet places where nobody is measuring your progress. Think of a seed beneath the soil. Before there is a stem, before there are leaves, before anyone can admire its growth, something invisible is happening. Roots are forming in darkness. They move downward before the plant can rise upward. Human character develops in much the same way. The visible life is only as stable as the hidden structure beneath it. If you want strength that survives disappointment, criticism, loneliness, and change, then you must cultivate something deeper than appearance. You must build an inner temple. This temple is not made of stone. It is built from habits, restraint, attention, patience, honesty, and repeated choices that no one else may ever notice. It rarely sees the mornings when you wanted to quit. It does not see the evenings when you chose not to return to an old habit. Yet these private moments are where the foundation is laid. A person becomes trustworthy to himself in secret. This is why privacy can be a form of protection. Not everything that begins needs to be announced. Not every goal needs an audience. Not every change requires a declaration. Sometimes speaking too early gives the mind the feeling of accomplishment before the work has earned it. You receive attention for the intention, and that attention can become a substitute for progress. Better to let some things grow without commentary. Let the roots deepen before you expose the plant to weather. Let your discipline become ordinary before you make it part of your identity. Let your actions become evidence before your words become promises. There is great power in becoming less interested in appearing disciplined and more interested in practicing discipline. The work itself is enough. This changes your relationship with effort. You stop performing improvement and begin inhabiting it. You stop asking how progress looks from the outside and begin asking whether the structure inside is becoming stronger. Genuine cultivation is slow. A mountain does not become solid in one storm. A tree does not deepen its roots in one night. Character is shaped through repetition so ordinary that it often feels unremarkable. You keep a promise to yourself today, then tomorrow, then again when you are tired. You speak with restraint when anger would be easier. You remain steady when praise disappears. You return to your practice after failure instead of turning one mistake into permission to abandon everything. This is how inner strength becomes less dependent on mood. Discipline is not cruelty toward yourself. It is the willingness to serve what matters even when immediate desire points elsewhere. It is going to bed because tomorrow deserves your attention. It is walking away from a conversation because peace is more valuable than winning. It is keeping your body active because you still have years you wish to meet with strength. It is refusing to feed resentment because carrying the past has become too expensive. These actions are quiet, but they accumulate. With time, the inner temple becomes a place you can return to when the outer world becomes unstable. Jobs change, bodies age, children grow, friends move away, plans fail, people misunderstand you. Roles that once defined you eventually fall away. If your identity depends entirely on those things, every change becomes an earthquake. But if you have cultivated an inner foundation, change can shake your circumstances without completely shaking your center. This is why private practice matters more as life advances. You understand that years are spent one morning at a time. This should not create panic. It should create precision. You do not need to improve everything. You need to become faithful to what truly matters. Choose a few practices that strengthen your body, clarify your mind, protect your dignity, and deepen your relationships. Then return to them without drama. The temple is built by returning. You will miss days. You will become discouraged. Old habits will knock on the door. There will be seasons when progress seems invisible. Do not confuse invisibility with absence. The seed looks motionless from above while roots are expanding below. Some of the most important changes in a person cannot be seen while they are happening. A calmer mind, a stronger boundary, a smaller need to explain, a greater capacity to remain alone without feeling abandoned, a deeper ability to hear criticism without collapsing. These are not decorations. They are architecture. Protect them from unnecessary exposure. The world does not need access to every unfinished part of you. Keep some work sacred. Keep some victories private. Allow yourself to mature without constantly turning growth into a performance. Eventually, what has been cultivated in private will become visible without announcement. But by then, their noticing will matter less. The mountain does not become taller when someone admires it, and it does not become smaller when someone walks past without looking. Its strength comes from what it is, not from the attention it receives. This is the direction of inner cultivation. To become so rooted in what you practice that recognition becomes secondary. To become so familiar with your values that rejection no longer changes your path. To become so honest with yourself that you no longer need a public image to hide behind. Then the final movement begins. You stop building a life for the eyes of others. And you begin returning to the person who was there before the performance started. You begin returning to the person who was there before the performance started. Not to an earlier version of yourself, not to the person you were at 20 or 30, but to something more fundamental. The part of you that existed before approval became a measure of